Hello, welcome to the Daily News Ukraine channel. Today is December 15th and our daily review of news about Ukraine. From January 1, 2023, the Russian invasion forces seek to ban circulation of the Ukrainian hryvnia in the temporarily occupied territories. That's according to Melitopol Mayor Ivan Fedorov, who spoke on the air of Espresso TV, Ukrinform reports. Also, we see trends that they, invaders edition, are plotting more repression. They said that from January 1, the circulation of the hryvnia will be completely prohibited, and those who will keep the hryvnia will be deemed public enemies. Each resident of Melitopol has hryvnias at home, so each could be accused of treason, Fedorov said. Read also, electricity shortages will increase inflationary pressure, NBU governor. According to the exiled mayor, the people of Melitopol are forced to exchange their hryvnias for Russian rubles at an extremely unfavorable rate. He added that, after each successful attempt by the armed forces of Ukraine to eliminate occupiers or their collaborators, another round of terror against the civilian population begins. After the destruction of the Russian military HQ, filtration measures targeting the local population intensified in the city. Mobile phones and cars are being checked, people are being detained. Photo, NBU. The Russian invaders suffer so much from the strikes of the armed forces of Ukraine that they lose hope even on the Eastern Front, where they have massed up their largest force. That's according to the latest intercepted call published by the Security Service of Ukraine, Ukrinform reports. In the call, a Russian soldier who was fighting in the Crimea district of Luhansk region complains to his wife. The officer says, "We need to seize that silo. But how do we take it if we only have 3 machine guns?" And he goes, "The order is to seize it." 17 rookies were killed then. They just stood up from the field. As we were dragging their bodies back, we were pelted with mortars. According to the Russian, the officer, who had given the order, fled the area. The serviceman does not hide his panic and actually says goodbye to his wife. He says his unit is doomed, but no one is going to take them out of the front line. Their order is to stand to the last man. Read also, next 6 months to be decisive in fight with Russia in many respects. Zelensky, the aggressor, says the Russian command does not care about manpower losses. We are shipping rookies back in bags. It's bags and bags. Can you imagine that? It's not a body at a time. 17 in one day, he says. The invader also laments that some of the strikes hitting his position are friendly fire due to faulty artillery spotting. As reported earlier, the Russian military death toll stands at nearly 96,590, according to the latest estimates by the Ukrainian Army's General Staff. In the temporarily occupied Crimea, Russian invaders are preparing to repel the Ukrainian army attacks. In the occupied Crimea, the Russists are trying to further fortify the coastline, fearing the landing of Ukrainian troops. In particular, a network of mine barriers and trenches is formed along the coast near the village of Molokny, Sakei district. In addition, the so-called Dragon's Teeth, rows of concrete pyramids supposed to stop the advance of heavy equipment, are placed, the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine reports. As the main Directorate of Intelligence reported earlier, the Russians build defense lines on the approaches to Crimea and in Zankoy district. Photo credit, Main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine OL. Ukraine advocates expanding the grain export initiative. Ukraine is in favor of expanding the grain export initiative to cover our other ports. In particular, the ports of Mykolaiv and hryvnia in Mykolaiv region. We count on the support of our partners in this matter, particularly the UN support, Prime Minister of Ukraine Denis Shmyhal said at a joint briefing with Martin Griffiths, UN Under-Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, in Kiev, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. According to him, 544 ships carrying 13.9 million tons of foodstuffs have already been sent to countries in Africa, Asia, and Europe as part of the grain initiative. The Prime Minister also thanked the UN for supporting the Grain from Ukraine initiative of President Zelensky. It is planned to send 60 ships with grain within its framework to provide food for at least 5 million people, mainly in Africa and Asia. Shmyhal emphasized that, despite the war, the export of Ukrainian agricultural products remains an effective tool for combating the global food crisis. After all, the world market will not be able to replace our agricultural products in the short term, he added. As reported, UN Under-Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, Emergency Relief Coordinator Martin Griffiths arrived in Ukraine on December 12 for a 4-day visit, during which he visited Kherson, Mykolaiv, and Kyiv. In the near future, the enemy's main efforts will be focused on the strategic task of establishing complete control over Donetsk and Luhansk regions of Ukraine. Brigadier General Alexei Hromov, Deputy Chief of the Main Operational Department of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, said this at a briefing at the Military Media Center, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. Given the successes of the Ukrainian troops in Kherson and Kharkiv directions, Hromov noted, the military and political leadership of the Russian Federation had to make changes to its operational plans for the capture of Ukraine. In the near term, the enemy's main efforts will be focused on the strategic task of establishing complete control over Donetsk and Luhansk regions of Ukraine, said the representative of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. He informed that in order to ensure a quantitative advantage in weapons and military equipment at the front, Russia is ramping up the production of domestic equipment, including by reducing the quality of products, and is also activating the conclusion of supply agreements with other countries. In addition, according to Hromov, Russian leadership adopted in November a number of legislative acts significantly expanding the list of citizens who can be called up for military service to make up for personnel losses suffered in military operations in Ukraine. In this context, he also reported on another wave of forced mobilization in the temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine, in Luhansk region. As reported, this autumn, the Defense Forces of Ukraine carried out successful counter-offensive operations, liberating settlements in Kherson and Kharkiv regions. Ukraine agrees with the UN on further support for internally displaced persons, continuation of financial assistance and creation of living conditions in winter. Today we discussed our further joint actions to prevent the humanitarian situation from worsening in Ukraine. Along with the critically needed assistance in the energy sector, our priority areas remain the continuation of direct financial assistance to internally displaced persons, which is currently being carried out jointly with UN agencies, further creation of shelters for IDPs, and the creation of living conditions in winter, Prime Minister of Ukraine Denis Shmyhal said at a joint briefing with Martin Griffiths, UN Under-Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, in Kyiv and Ukrinform. Correspondent reports. As noted, Shmyhal and Griffiths also discussed the implementation of the program to restore the homes of Ukrainians damaged as a result of the war unleashed by Russia, the provision of humanitarian aid in the territories liberated by the Ukrainian army from the Russian invaders, as well as assistance to people evacuated from the areas of hostilities. The parties also emphasized the importance to support people who still remain in the zone of intense hostilities. The visit of the UN representative to the south of Ukraine, supporting and preserving small and medium-sized enterprises critically important for the economy, were also touched upon. Read also, global private business wants to help by creating new jobs in Ukraine. The UN's involvement in humanitarian demoning was also discussed. As reported, UN Under-Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, Emergency Relief Coordinator Martin Griffiths arrived in Ukraine on December 12 for a 4-day visit, during which he visited Kherson, Mykolaiv, and Kyiv. In the morning, the enemy shelled communities in Dnipropetrovsk region, injuring 2 people. Since the morning, the Russians have already shelled Nikopol district several times. They targeted Chervonohryvnia, Nikopol, and Marinets communities with their Grad MLRS and heavy artillery. Valentin Reznichenko, head of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Military Administration, posted on Telegram. Script async src equals https://telegram.org/js/telegram widget.js 21 data telegram post equals Dnipropetrovsk ODA/2735 data width equals 100% /script 2 civilians were injured. A 66-year-old man is in the hospital, a 67-year-old woman is treated at home. Houses and power lines were damaged. The consequences are still being clarified. Read also, enemy again hits Kherson city center, killing 2 civilians as reported. The enemy fired Grad MLRS and heavy artillery at 3 communities of Nikopol district. The air raid siren sounded for more than 14 hours. Photo, Valentin Reznichenko/Telegram OL. Global private business is interested in helping people in Ukraine, in particular, by creating new jobs for them in small and medium-sized enterprises. There are signs indicating a great interest of global private business in helping people in Ukraine, and the Ukrainian authorities try to mobilize this help. We have to ensure the work of small and medium-sized enterprises in Ukraine, Martin Griffiths, UN Under-Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, said at a joint briefing with Prime Minister of Ukraine Denis Shmyhal in Kiev, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. In this context, he cited the example of investing donor funds in a bakery in Mykolaiv to provide bread to Kherson as well. Read also, UN provided over $4.5 billion in humanitarian assistance to Ukraine, PM Shmyhal. In this way, more than 200 people returned to their workplaces. This is a double benefit that we must ensure because life must go on, people must be able to return to normal life, the UN Under-Secretary-General emphasized. As reported, UN Under-Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, Emergency Relief Coordinator Martin Griffiths arrived in Ukraine on December 12 for a 4-day visit, during which he visited Kherson, Mykolaiv, and Kiev. OL. Russia has fired thousands of missiles at Ukraine that could destroy the infrastructure of any country, but Ukrainians effectively resist Russian terror. Thousands of missiles that Russia fired against Ukraine this year could destroy the infrastructure of any country. But the Ukrainians effectively resist the enemy's missile terror, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky posted on Telegram. He also published a short English-language video by United 24 Media about Russian missile strikes and the incredible results of Ukrainian Sky Guardians. As reported, the Russian invaders have been launching missile strikes on Ukraine since the first day of the full-scale invasion. Since October 10, Russia has been targeting the Ukrainian energy infrastructure facilities with missiles and drones. OL. The Russian troops again struck the center of Kherson city. According to preliminary information, 2 civilians were killed. Kherson. The enemy hit the city center again, 100 meters from the building of the Kherson Regional Military Administration, which was attacked yesterday. There is information about 2 people killed, Deputy Head of the President's Office Kirilo Tymoshenko posted on Telegram. Emergency services work at the scene. Read also, Russians attack Kherson region 86 times, 3 civilians killed as reported, an 8-year-old child and a woman were killed in the Russian shelling of Kherson on December 14 OL. Today we were talking about those news. Russian invaders set to ban hryvnia in occupied areas from January 1. Exiled mayor of Melitopol. Russians losing hope on battlefield, devastated by Ukrainian strikes. Intercept. Trenches, mines, dragon's teeth, occupiers in Crimea preparing to repel Ukraine army attacks. Shmyhal hopes for UN support for grain export from Mykolaiv region ports. General Staff, enemy will try to establish complete control over Donetsk, Luhansk regions in near future. PM Shmyhal, Ukraine negotiates further support for displaced persons with UN. 2 civilians injured in strike on Nikopol district. Global private business wants to help by creating new jobs in Ukraine, UN. Zelensky shares video about Russia's missile terror. Enemy again hits Kherson city center, killing 2 civilians.